As of recording this video, it'll be almost 2 years since the Oceania qualifier, and a year since the Olympics has passed. Now, like most things in popular culture, I was kind of expecting Raygun to die out. She got her bag, she got her PR agency, and she kind of got what she needed to out of the whole ordeal. However, for my friends that still break, those of you that have been attending ciphers, practice sessions, and battles for the past couple of years, I dedicate this video to you, because it's most likely that the ghost of Raygun is still haunting you. From the timeless gift that people love to comment every time they see something breaking related on Reddit, to the generous inquiries that your coworkers make when you let slip that you break, society has not forgotten to let us know the cultural impact of Raygun. So I'm going to go through what I believe to be the key reasons that cause for the exploitation of breaking, my thoughts on the Australian breaking scene, and this whole debacle. And so you might be asking yourself, who the hell is this random man in the yellow Kill Bill jacket telling me what to think about breakdance? Well, I've been breaking for the past 10 years, and I've been attending Australian breaking events pretty consistently since about 2017. I've seen people come and go, and I've seen more people flourish into talented artists and dancers. Now, even though 10 years of breaking is baby numbers within the general scene, I still think it's more than enough time to form my own thoughts and opinions based on my own lived experience. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I want to go ahead and claim direct ownership of the views and opinions expressed in this video. There'll be people in our lovely community who will agree with what I have to say, while there'll be others who will disagree with what I have to say. And so it'd be pretty disingenuous and selfish to think that everyone else in Australian breaking has the same views as me. This is my video to share with you. Now, to be vulnerable with you here, I am not at all happy with the coverage that has happened since the Raygun incident. I'm also not happy with the fact that people who have nothing to do with our scene have come in to talk as if they were living in our shoes. I woke up and every John, Sarah, and Willie suddenly became an expert on something that I'd been training years to master. And I know this is what happens when you open up your culture to the world, but I think enough is enough. And I think in the whole entire world, there are only a handful of people who can give adequate testimony as to what happened on the qualifier day, as well as all the things that happened in the Australian breaking scene leading up to the Olympics. So now, it is time for me to speak. So in a general case, Australia really hasn't enjoyed that much competitive success on the international stage, nor has it had much artistic influence on the evolution of breaking. We can't claim to have influential stars coming out of Australia like they do for the other countries such as the United States, Canada, South Korea, and France. In fact, I can probably count on both of my hands the amount of dancers who are internationally recognized in Australia. To put it bluntly, Oceania never really had a horse in this race, and you can maybe harbour some reason as to why. Firstly, Australia is really far away. Really fucking far away. Even worse for our brothers and sisters in New Zealand and the rest of the oceanic region. Being so far away makes it hard for us to tussle with competitive hotbeds like Europe and Japan. Makes it hard for us to gain new knowledge, insight, training methods, and creative ways to break. Meanwhile, this slows down the development of Australian breaking in comparison to the rest of the world. And there's only been a handful of instances where international dancers have come to share their knowledge with Australia. But we have had some greats live here as well. Powan lived here and Fleerock lived in Melbourne for a bit as well. But when you've only got a handful of interactions with the rest of the world, then you can't really get too far. And at some point, breaking kind of became pay to win. The people who made the sacrifice to pay the dollars to travel and be as far away from Australia as they possibly could be are the ones who ended up improving, training, and competing the most. Unfortunately, breakers like this only come around once in a blue moon. I really have to pay an arm and a leg just to compete at any major event in the world. Let's go to our lovely friends at Skyscanner and see how much it'll cost me to enter Outbreak, arguably one of the most elusive solo breaking competitions in the world. From Melbourne, I'll have to fly to Vienna and take the shuttle bus to Banska Bystrica. I'll also need an Airbnb for the weekend, and I'll also have to fork out some money for registration fees. This is also excluding food, and maybe if I feel good, I'll have a drink at the after party. I'll then need to double this to account for having to come back home as well. Each time I have to fly to Europe or North America to battle, I have to cough up 3 months of rent. Australians are flying overseas regularly, but the likelihood of someone even coming to Australia to break is relatively low, especially when you factor in the global increase in the costs of living. Also, can we talk about the currency conversion rate and how weak the Australian dollar is compared to the US dollar and euro? Do you see why it is so hard for us to improve now? Secondly, Australia is underwhelming at breaking because Australia is underwhelming at everything. It's only fair that as a nation you pour your funding into the sports that bring you back the gold. And in Australia, there's only one sport that's really fucking popping. Swimming! Now, in the case of the 2024 Olympics, aquatic sports held a total of 49 individual competitions, while athletics held a total of 48 individual competitions. Accounting for gold, silver, and bronze placements, there are 291 medals up for grabs across these two disciplines alone. Are you kidding me? Look man, if you're a country trying to bring back home the bacon, it's only fair you put your investment here, especially if your country has a track record of doing well in these events. Go figure. And in the case of the 2024 Olympics, Australia won a total of 18 gold medals, 19 silver medals, and 16 bronze medals. That means 7 of the 18 gold medals, 9 of the 19 silver medals, and 3 of the 16 bronze medals all came from aquatic sports. More than a third of Australia's medals last year came from swimming or an aquatic sport. But if you look at other niche sports like indoor volleyball or climbing, then Australia doesn't really do that well. They do okay, but not enough to win. And when your craft doesn't receive as much support from the government, then the onus kind of falls on you as an individual to do your best and compete with the rest of the world. Plus, all of Australia's high-level performing athletes that could have played these sports are chilling comfy in the AFL. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But there's still high-level breaking coming out of countries in turmoil like Venezuela and Ukraine. Countries where breakers are constantly getting their civil rights stripped away from them, and some leaving their countries to flee war. So then how come they can do it, but we can't? Well, Australian breakers just don't train that hard. I'm just going to keep it 1,000 here. I don't think Australian breakers train that hard. Most of us on average are training about 6 to 10 hours per week, which when you compare to most other sports is more or less recreational engagement. Actually, it's not even that Australian breakers don't train hard. Well, they actually can't. I've been talking too much and it's getting pretty hot in here, so why don't we go for a walk? Right, so here I am on the 3rd floor of QV Shopping Centre in Melbourne City. But before I get into the importance of this spot, I want to take a quick moment to talk about the sponsor of this video, nobody. That's right, over the past month or so, I've been recording, editing, and producing this video from scratch. And at the time of filming, I've only got about 700 subscribers, which means that's not enough to make any money from my videos. I'd absolutely appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe. Your subscription to my channel is more than just a mere click. It's investment into me as a creator and be able to do this full time over the long term. Here on this channel, I like to provide insight and commentary onto contemporary happenings within the breaking scene. For those of you that have stuck around since the first batch of videos, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. And for those of you who have just found out about the channel, I invite you to stick around, subscribe, and join the fray. Now back to QV, this was a popular spot for dancers of all styles until very recently. It was one of those cool third spaces that you guys love to harp on about and was frequented by dancers of all styles, from popping, K-pop, breaking, house, and more. On the 1st of August, these two venues behind me, Archie Brothers and Hijinks Hotel, opened up. But before this, it was filled with empty office spaces that became vacant at night, meaning people could come here and train after hours. But as you can see, this space right behind me, no longer suitable for public use. It's filled with chairs, the red carpet, and more. And our once beloved practice spot has become nothing more than 2 venues for people to go, get wasted, and spend all their money. With all the foot traffic and people walking by, it's virtually impossible to access the space and use it for dance. You can also use the other sides for practice, but there are people walking through those as well. And for those of you that are saying just ignore the people passing by, I get you, but imagine you're preparing for a tennis match and you're about to do a serve when a civilian suddenly walks on the court. Or you're preparing for a free throw in a basketball game when suddenly a random stranger walks in front of you, obscuring your shot. It's just not good for having a productive practice session and not good for training at all. And you want to know what's worse? This isn't the first time a public practice spot has been sealed up. This here is Melbourne Museum, a popular walking strip that connects Raygun and Nicholson Street with ample space for rollerblading, skating, dancing, and more. However, if you want to try breaking here now, good luck with all of these trees. And just like Archie Brothers and Hijinks Hotel in the city, these trees have been a new installment and were only around as of last year in December. And so another popular public training spot available for dancers has been destroyed by government or corporate intervention. Awesome. And so for me, training here in Melbourne has been nothing but an uphill battle of relocating, and relocating. These spaces aren't necessarily good for people trying to learn how to break either. They're loud, the floor sucks, and there are people everywhere. It's pretty bad for a learning environment if you ask me. More importantly, why the hell were our Olympic hopefuls training for the competitions at shopping malls to begin with? More importantly, we still gotta work, bro. There aren't many of us here that can sustain ourselves off of income from just breaking. In fact, there aren't many of us that make any money from this at all. So, subscribe to the channel. So all things considered, I hope you can see why the one person who was able to train the hardest and win the whole competition was none other than J-Attack, a high school aged teenager. So poetic. I hope you can all see that as a region, just like any other region in breaking, we've got our fair share of disadvantages too. Disadvantages that have stopped us from having the proper infrastructure that we need in order to train and compete with the rest of the world. And so as a nation, this kind of leads to the general populace just really not having an interest in breaking. I know you and I might love breaking, but we can't really convince the other 26 million people in our country to love breaking just as much. And so when you put two and two together, I don't think Oceania really deserved a chance at the Olympics in the first place. However, due to the nature of the Olympics needing a representative from each legible continent, things panned out differently. And so let me present you this. Your ticket to represent in the Olympics is nothing more than a short domestic flight or train ride away. Your chances to make it on the team are about 1 in 30, or for Raygun, your chances of winning are a whopping 1 in 15, with a chance to receive all the media attention and hype from the general public that will launch you into stardom. Do you take it? The day is October 27th, a beautiful sunny morning at Sydney Town Hall. It's the prelim day of the Olympic qualifier. Each participant has to do an audition round to make it through to the battle stage. If you make it through, you've got a chance at glory. If not, your Olympic dream is over. People are pretty excited to show off their new moves and they're locked in. We've even got our own dedicated warm-up area in the back. How nice. We're greeted on the day by our good friends and MCs, Max Momentum and Mystery. They then go to introduce our elusive judging panel, who is comprised of Katsu 1, Skim, Just Rock, Rush, Dong, Chow, Moy, Kim, Kid Glide, and Frost. Wait, that's odd. How about that one guy? Who was he? Raygun's husband? Oh yeah, he wasn't fucking there. Sammy, who's Raygun's husband, was not on the judging panel. A lot of people got this part wrong because they thought he got paid off to join the judging panel to rig the whole thing, when in fact this couldn't be farther from the truth. What people get confused about this whole ordeal is that he was not a judge, but later appointed as a coaching staff for Team Australia. Not too good of an idea, but we'll get to that later. So moving on, everyone does their audition round, I ate shit, and the day continues. But there's something off about the B-Girl bracket. There's only 15 participants. Kinda strange, right? So in accordance with what happened at the other Olympic qualifier events, the top 16 B-Girls get organised into 4 groups of 4. They then battle it out with each other in these groups of 4 to determine the winners. Every battle you win in this group stage nets you points, and so the more points you accrue, the more chance you have of getting into the top 2. And so the top 2 dancers with the most points in each group end up moving towards the next phase of the event, the tournament. And in the tournament stage, the top 8 dancers duke it out to determine a winner in a single elimination bracket. But you don't have to worry about remembering any of that shit because for the women's side, it didn't even happen. With only 15 dancers on the women's side, they totally skipped the whole group stage and moved straight from 15 dancers to the top 8 immediately to the tournament stage. Raygun had to do her prelim round, win her top 8 battle, win the semi-finals, and then win the final battle in order to become an Olympian. If you discount her prelim round, she only had to do 3 battles. 3 battles in order to become an Olympian. Are you fucking kidding me? Some of you might even ask how Raygun was able to win her battles in first place with her approach. So, allow me to introduce what we like to call in the scene, judging. Like any of the other subjective sports that win the Olympics, breaking needed its own judging system to be considered for Paris. Enter Trivium. This wasn't the official system that they used for the Olympics last year, but the system that they did use was a derivative of Trivium, which I'll explain briefly. In the context of the Trivium system, the judgment of breaking has been divided into 3 main categories to coincide with the holistic approach to dancing: the mind, the body, and the soul. For the mind, we have artistic qualities. Think of things like creativity and personality. For the body, we have physical qualities. Think of criteria like technique, variety, and form. And for the soul, we've got performative qualities. Think of criteria like musicality and dramaturgy. Artistic qualities, physical qualities, and performative qualities are all weighted equally at 33.3%, combining to make 100%. In the context of an Olympic qualifier, it is not enough to be physically talented to win a battle. It only makes up a third of the criteria that can be judged on. Even though Hiroten blew up the stage at Paris last year, he still lost to Victor in the end because he can still get beat out on the other 2 fields. You can still lose to a breaker who has infinitely more persona than you and is someone who is better at engaging the crowd and engaging with the music. Someone who's got plenty of variation and originality, so that they don't have to repeat any of their moves for the whole tournament. In the context of competitive breaking, you can still have the most garbage moves, but if you execute them with character, finesse, and the intellect that is native to the b-boy/b-girl essence, and you can convince the world that you're amazing. The ultimate fake it or make it maneuver. With this in mind, this can help explain why Raygun was able to beat the other competitors with subpar tricks and power moves. She still has some semi-intellectual concepts and moves that not a lot of other competitors are thinking about. But in my opinion, some of the other competitors might think her ideas are whack as fuck, and so don't really give them much thought. Moves that people would have skipped, Raygun tends to flesh out more and dive deeper into. Think of this as like a one man's trash is another man's treasure situation. However, she does perform some of these moves with confidence and dramaturgy. And even though this can all be seen as a facade, the fact that she had some level of competence and performative ability goes to show the judges that she actually cares about her breaking. All of this is enough to win the judges over to pick her over the other competitors. So then why weren't there more entrants into the women's category? I can kind of answer this in one bold statement. Breaking is not popular in Australia. Your barriers to entry for this event are remarkably low. You didn't need to have an accreditation, you didn't have to enter multiple state level qualifiers to receive a prestigious invite, and you didn't have to fork out a bunch of money to pay membership fees. If you are an Australian citizen, all you had to do was pay your $30 fee to make a WDSF account, and you had your chance. If you are a female dancer in Australia who likes popping, locking, or choreography, you could have entered, but you didn't. Not because you didn't know, but you probably didn't care. And to be honest with you, I don't think anyone in Australia actually cared about breaking before August 2024. Shit! I can't believe I missed my chance at becoming an Olympian! Well, now that you know that you missed out on your chance to become an Olympian, let's dial in on Raygun's preparation for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Shall we? Now, because she won the top spot at the Oceania qualifier, it meant that she didn't have to enter any more WDSF competitions to net more points to qualify. That means that she could have immediately started preparing for the Olympics the moment that she won the qualifier in October 2023, up until the point of the Breaking Games in August 2024. Now, I know 9 months isn't long, but I think it's enough time to make leaps and bounds in your breaking if you really apply yourself. And to illustrate this point, we're going to play a game called Here's What I Would Have Done If I Was Raygun and I had 9 months to prepare for the Olympics. Step 1. Leave Australia. That's right, I totally just fuck off. Uproot my residency and temporarily move to a country with a high skill ceiling. My picks? China or Japan. Both of these countries are very dense with strong breakers, with battles every weekend in different cities, allowing me to gain exposure to breakers who are stronger than myself. These countries are both rich with resources and knowledge to have productive training sessions, and inspiration here is completely boundless. It would have been great to have battled Japan's Olympians before the Olympic Games rolled around. You need to fight with the best, not with the local breakers from Sydney. Step number 2. Less interviews. I would have drastically reduced the amount of time spent doing interviews and PR leading up to the Olympic Games. To me, these look like nothing more than clout grabs and opportunities for Rachel to increase her Instagram follower count. If you ask me, I think if I spent less time getting my ass kissed and more time training in the lab, then things would have panned out differently. To me, it looked like the media kind of gobbled her up so that they could spin their own narrative on her. And to me, it didn't look like their support for her was actually genuine in the first place. Step number 3. Compete, compete, compete. I personally think that JTAC did a great job of competing and preparing for the Olympics. He aligned himself with other high-level international breakers and prepared himself well by attending events overseas and competing in as many events as he could. But Raygun, nowhere to be found on the international scene. And I'm sure you can all take a guess as to why. To avoid embarrassment. Imagine you, the newly crowned Australian Olympian, flying over to Japan to prepare for the Olympic Games, and you enter a competition and you get absolutely smoked by a 15-year-old. That's pretty embarrassing. More so, it'll be a harder pill to swallow when the reality hits that you're nowhere near the level you need to be to have a good showing at the Olympics. So it's easier to not fight the dragon and stay in your little bubble of Sydney to keep training with a scene that has less than 10 B-girls. Feeling like you're the biggest fish in the smallest pond is probably a better move for your mental health leading up to the Olympics, is it not? At the same time, Australia still has a generation of older breakers who are very, very talented that she could have consulted. But the fact is, her coach was Sammy, her husband and someone that's been training with her ever since her early days. The fact is, she probably would have been reluctant to take advice from anyone else. Here are the people that I would have had on my coaching team leading up to the Olympics. All these missed opportunities arise, and suddenly you're in Paris as ill prepared as you could possibly be. And so we are moving on to the part that everyone knows and loves. For me, this is the hardest part of the video to make, simply because everything that can be said about Raygun's Olympic performance has already been said. There are those claiming that her performance at the Olympics was nothing but a hoax, and a parody of breaking, using her research in anthropology and hip-hop studies as further evidence to claim that our scene is corrupt, while others like to claim that Raygun's performance at the Olympics was honouring the spirit of hip-hop, in keeping true to your individuality, expressing yourself, and staying true to your roots. And how Rachel, as a 30-something white woman from Metro Sydney, is probably as far away as you could possibly be from hip-hop's black and Latino, ghetto, oppressed roots. And how it'd be unsuitable for her to try to be anything other than who she actually is. You all as individuals have every right to believe what you want, so I'm gonna throw my hat into the ring. For me, I see Rachel's performance and the whole Olympic debacle a cruel irony on how even our beloved craft is unsafe from the realm of public opinion. How cruel it was for the same media machine that built Rachel up in the first place only to tear her down less than a year later. Suddenly, people who were indifferent or even supportive of Rachel suddenly became her biggest haters overnight, and overnight turned her from a forgettable Olympic athlete to something larger than we ever could have conceived here in the scene. To me, it looks like people hate what her performance had done for the scene, and how the media and the public turned breaking into pure comedy, which only then made sense to turn into hatred for her as a human being. As someone who participates in Australia's breaking community, I can only cope with this by saying that Rachel had our culture in her best interests, but you never really know how someone feels on the inside, do you? Over the past couple of years, I've only really had a handful of very forgettable interactions with Rachel. Simple hellos and goodbyes at Sydney breaking events and a couple of practice sessions here and there. But from what I've observed, I think our scene got fleeced. And I think that you could argue that Rachel as a dancer on a commercial level is probably the single most successful case that I think we'll ever have in Australia. I think it would have been nice for her to contribute some of that PR money into bettering Australia's breaking community. She could have thrown a jam with the money, or she could have flown an international guest here to Australia to share their knowledge and to help improve and build the skills of the scene. But instead, she didn't really do any of that. Well, besides that one really whack Finder campaign. She still has her crew here in Australia, Vanguards of Style, so it would have been nice for her to share some of that prosperity with them, at least. So that's the third piece of the Raygun pie. Virality. Her likeness was so easy to manipulate that the media could basically do whatever they wanted with her image. And that Raygun, as a white woman, is probably the most marketable face that you can have to come from our breaking scene. And I think the case of being mediocre at your craft as well is very relatable for a lot of people. The corporate machine just wanted its next meal. Her image, her story, her whiteness, and her sort of lack of skill in comparison to the other athletes makes for a very marketable and very relatable story that a lot of people in the world can relate to, right? In our age of art that sort of lacks talent, creativity, and spark, I think Rachel is kind of the perfect face of all of this. Maybe us in the Australian scene were a bit too invested in our own sort of agenda, too invested in our own story and narrative to really think outside this bubble. I was, at least, and I can say that much. You want to hope for the best, you want to hope that people will put their best foot forward, and you hope that people will see the best in everything, but that's just not the reality that we live in. Before I wrap things up, I want to present to you what I call the Raygun pie. For me, these are the three main factors that led us to the situation we have today. Deservedness, or lack thereof, complacency, and poor preparation for the competitions, and virality, and the media's attraction to Raygun's commercial viability. Now we're here with nothing else to do but to pick up the pieces. I think most of us just want to leave this in the past and focus on greener pastures, but the truth is that the ghost of Raygun's 2024 Olympic performance will most likely haunt our community for many years to come. While we can spend all day and night here arguing about who's to blame and pointing fingers, whether it's at the IOC, WDSF, Ozbreaking, or Rachel herself, I do believe that it's up to us to take the responsibility in fixing this mess. And if I've learned anything from this whole debacle, is that I believe we have every right to act as ambassadors for our own dance, our own community, and our own culture, which is something that actually motivated me to start this channel in the first place. And again, you can argue that this video is just too late, but like I said at the start of the video, I would rather live in the world where this video exists than in the one where it doesn't. As much as society appears to hate us, Rachel is still here, I'm still here, and you're still here. And you can't really delete culture out of thin air. The reason we're addicted to breaking and hip-hop are the very reasons that brought it to the Olympic stage in the first place. Like that cockroach in your wall, you will never get rid of us. My name is Jafri, this has been the Raygun video. Thank you so much for donating me your time, and I'll see you at the dance.